Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to talk about something that it's not really necessarily out of Comic Con, but it's a cross announcement. Basically, it's one of those things that a lot of studios will put out stuff around Comic Con because a lot of entertainment news is getting kind of put through the ringer. And I'll probably make another video either later today or tomorrow to discuss some of the other things that have come out of Comic Con or around that area. But let's dissect this first. And this is that apparently The Exorcist is getting a new trilogy of films that are all coming out of Blumhouse Studios. Now, from what we know about this so far, Ellen Burstyn, who was the original mother of Regan McNeil in the first Exorcist film, is apparently coming back to reprise the role at the age of 88. Now, I don't know if she's actually signed on for all three of the movies, or if she's only signed on for the first film of this trilogy. However, what we're looking at right now is that Ellen Burstyn has been signed on, at least for the first film, and the first film will star Leslie Odom Jr., who was a member of the Hamilton production. Now, the story is supposed to revolve around Leslie Odom Jr., and apparently his child is possessed by a demon similar to Linda Blair in the original film. So he goes and seeks out Ellen Burstyn's character and for advice, basically, to try and cure his possessed daughter. So it's basically retreading a lot of what the first film had, and they're probably just going to update the setting and all that crap. It does reverse the role a little bit because in the first film, the father was not in the film. Period. The only time we ever actually know anything with the father is when Ellen Burstyn is on the phone with him at various points, and he never like actually physically shows up in the film. At least not from what I remember. And in this, it looks like they're switching that role because there's really no mention of the mother. It's mostly just Leslie Odom Jr. So they probably just did that sort of a switch, and they're going to basically probably do the same thing. Now, I don't necessarily know that for sure, but that's how it kind of looks on paper right now. So, but here's the other thing that really is weird to me, and that is the fact that this apparently Universal Pictures, NBC, Universal Pictures and NBC paid $400 million for the worldwide rights for this Exorcist trilogy to get all of the rights to actually do it. And that is a lot of money. Now to put that in retrospective, if you're spending $400 million on a project, regardless of whether or not that project is up and running, because that's the other thing too, is the production budgets on these things. I'm assuming since it's been announced that they've already been set, and that is part of those $400 million. That is part of that $400 million deal. I would really hope so, because that's a lot, especially for three movies about The Exorcist. I mean, when you think of the budgets for films like that, it's not very large. A majority of that money was just to get the rights to the franchise and the distribution rights. That was a majority of what that was. And actually, ironically, Knives Out, the Rian Johnson film, the two sequels to that, also netted about $400 million by Netflix, but those are specifically going to Netflix. As far as we're aware, these are going to theaters, because again, this is, and also probably going to NBC's streaming service, Peacock. Which, again, I have a funny feeling they're probably going to wind up doing the Warner Brothers thing. They're going to do the same-day release type of thing, where they'll stick it in theaters and they'll put it on the streaming service same day for like some kind of a price. Usually, I know not everybody does the Warner Brothers thing where it's just like, oh, it's just here, and if you have the service, you can watch it. It's more the idea of, okay, you're going to have to pay like a rental fee or something like that, because again, it's also Blumhouse. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with Blumhouse. It's not... there's a lot of stuff that they put out that I think is dog shit, like the Invisible Man film, or the other remakes that they're probably developing, which don't look that good. The Fantasy Island movie was weird. So there's a lot of properties that they get a hold of, and it doesn't necessarily work out well. because they basically they take the canon approach to filmmaking in terms of they make very low budgeted films, and then they market those films with usually with a name or with a larger studio kind of pushing them a little bit, and they make a decent amount of money off of them normally, and then they use that money and put it into other productions. Again, they took the canon model basically, and they took kind of all the sleazy, shystery crap out of it, and they literally just make low budget horror films that can't fail because they're so low budget that they don't need to make that much money to break even and then make a profit. Now, the only problem I see with this is that Universal and NBC Universal are expecting a payback on this $400 commitment from this franchise, and that's a problem. Because The Exorcist, other than the first movie and the third movie wasn't even really that, from what I remember, I don't think the third movie was really all that financially successful. It kind of developed a cult following over the years. But all the other Exorcist films outside of those two were financial failures. Exorcist 2 is one of the worst movies ever made. It's frequently on those lists. The Exorcist prequels are a lesson in production mayhem because of what happened with both of those films, and the fact that the studio basically said, all right, we're just going to remake the film and release it in theaters like 6 months later with different actors. At a different script, at a different director. The Exorcist prequels is weird. That the whole production and everything on that is weird. But the franchise has never had a staying presence. It's like I said, it's really just the first film. And for horror fans, it's the first and the third film. And the other thing is that apparently it doesn't appear you have William Friedkin on this, and I think he's still alive. I know William Peter Blatty is not alive. Sorry, no, I stand that corrected. I have that backwards. William Peter Blatty, I believe, is alive. William Friedkin, I'm pretty sure, is dead. So Blatty, again, he has directed films. He's directed several films, actually. He's more known as a writer, and he's mainly known for The Exorcist, but as far as I'm aware, he's not involved in this. This is mainly the team that was behind the Blumhouse Halloween film. And that's the other thing that I wanted to touch on in this, is apparently going to be directed by David Gordon Green, and they also have Danny McBride attached to this as well, both as a producer and I believe as a writer as well, along with Green. So those were two of the people that worked on that Halloween series, on the Halloween series of films that Blumhouse is making, which Halloween Ends is coming out this October, or Halloween Kills is coming out this October. So you have both of those guys who are doing that, but that's the other thing too, is that I like it when comedy people go to horror a lot of the time, because usually it's very, very good, but at the same time, Halloween and The Exorcist are two very different animals when it comes to horror. Trying to emulate something with The Exorcist is extremely difficult, because that film was very much not only a product of its time, but it's developed an infamy as far as, well, maybe not an infamy, maybe more like a fame in terms of a horror movie, because it's widely considered to be the scariest movie ever made, and a lot of people believe that because people had to go to therapy after the movie. And again, that was back in 1973, different audience, different time. It's kind of like when you sit somebody down today who's used to like 80s slasher movies, and you had them watch like Universal monster films. Like they would find those very tame. But people at the time were freaked out by that because they had never seen shit like that in theaters before. So The Exorcist is kind of in that group where I love The Exorcist. I think it's an amazing horror film. I still think it is frightening in some respects with the different things that they managed to do in that movie. It is still creepy. But we're desensitized to the point where we watch it and we look at it and we say, oh, that's not that scary. And unfortunately, that's the reputation that these films have to live up to. They have to live up to being sequels to the scariest horror film ever made, regardless of what people think of it. So I don't think they're going to hit that $400 million mark with all three of these movies to get this stuff made. And same thing with Knives Out, actually. I don't think Netflix is going to get that return back either, although they've been making various weird financial decisions lately. But this goes along the line of a lot of things that are happening nowadays where everybody wants a franchise. all major Hollywood studios want a franchise. Disney has Marvel, Warner Brothers has DC. I forget who the Fast and Furious movies are actually produced by because I don't pay attention to those films. Because it's just weird, stupid stunts with cars. But like every studio wants a franchise like that, something they could bank off of. They all wanted to copy the Marvel method, and this is just kind of the most recent thing of them trying to jumpstart a franchise. And this is the problem too, is that when you force a franchise, like what Universal actually did with the Universal Dark Universe films they were planning on doing, the monster movies that were supposed to be a reimagining, like Tom Cruise's The Mummy or that Dracula Untold movie. They were supposed to have this dark universe thing where they were going to create this whole interconnected universe with all of the original Universal monsters. Then what happened? The Mummy fails, they scrap the whole thing, and they dump it to Blumhouse. So they found a way to basically make money off of their old products by doing that. But this is counterintuitive to that because they already own the rights to the Universal monster movies. This is Universal. So they didn't have to pay any extra to dump those properties off to Blumhouse. They just had to hand Jason Blum all the spec scripts and say, hey, put these productions together. Get the directors, get the writers, rewrite the scripts, toss the scripts if you want, that kind of thing. They passed these off to Blumhouse and kept the distribution rights so that if they made something good, then they could keep it. Again, kind of similar to Halloween, although the difference is that Halloween was a low-budget film, and it should have been a low-budget film. It's just a slasher movie. It's not. It doesn't. You don't need to have an insane budget for a film like that. And the movie wound up making $250 million worldwide. It was a massive hit. Now, I don't know whether or not Halloween Kills is going to do that, although the trailer, other than the fact that I think it showed too much, I didn't really mind the trailer. But now you're moving into this whole situation with The Exorcist where you have 3 films that you have already greenlit. You're planning on filming 3 movies already without even seeing if the first one is tested. Again, Halloween, they did the first one and then they came back and said, oh, we're doing 2 more because that movie was an amazing success. So that makes sense. If something makes money, I understand greenlighting maybe 1 or 2 sequels to go along with it. It does make sense from a financial standpoint, especially if a movie makes that much money compared to its budget. But in this scenario, you have nothing to go on. There has not been a proven Exorcist property in terms of the actual Exorcist franchise, not like all the offshoots and bullshit, that has made money in 20, 30 years. I don't even know if the third one technically made money. It might have just broken even, so that means it's going all the way back to the first film. So it's not. This doesn't look good. This looks like it's Universal and NBC kind of just throwing away money. Like I said, I don't mind the creative team behind it, but it is Blumhouse. They're not really into making deep, mental horror films. The Invisible Man was a complete train wreck of trash, and the story and plot line are stupid. And I would expect the same for both the Wolfman remake I believe they are doing, and I think they're doing a Bride of Frankenstein movie as well, but I don't remember exactly. But there are a few Universal properties that are currently in production over there. But that's just kind of my opinion on this news. But I want to know yours. Do you guys, are you guys excited for more Exorcist films? Do you think that this is a good idea, a bad idea? Do you like the director? Do you like Blumhouse in general? Put your thoughts in the comments below. As usual, I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications. Hit the like button. Subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?